Team, happy Thursday, and welcome to my son's bedroom. It's a pretty fitting place to broadcast this from, considering what we're talking about this week. You can see there are any number of toys around me. My kids are into a lot of stuff. They're into animals, obviously. They're into basketball. There are truckloads of Legos all around me on the floor, which means I'm going to carefully walk out of here when I'm done making the video. But I thought this was good because Ecclesiastes is all about having a truckload of stuff. And my kids have a truckload of stuff. And you understand this if you have kids too. They're not content with the truckload of stuff they have. They want more stuff to go with their stuff. And that's ultimately what Solomon's talking about. So let me say right out the bat, read Ecclesiastes this weekend. It's 12 chapters. It won't take you terribly long. But it really is fascinating to see this guy that had everything wrestle with this question of what matters in life, what and what doesn't. I think it's a helpful. And then encourage the students to read it too. Just tell them, read it over the course of the week. Reading it over the course of 1 week is a really good, healthy goal. And they'll pick up some pretty interesting stuff too. Let me say option number 1 is awesome. It's just really, really deep to start a lesson with. So maybe do that at the end. Because that question specifically about do you think there's any meaning to life? Gosh, I would love to hear how they respond to that, but that's really hard to ask right out the gate. Option 2 is a lot of fun. I think the boys in particular would have with that, but we do a real serious juke on them, so it starts off with this cool practice, and they realize where it's going, and that's really deep. So maybe do option 2 at first, and then option 1 to end. But they're both really helpful. But man, I love that question from option number 1. Now let's get into it. Here's the deal. This book shows the futility of having everything. Solomon had everything. He had all the money, all the women, all the talents, all the knowledge. There was nothing that Solomon didn't have or didn't have access to. And yet, if you read through this book, by and large, he's a pretty miserable dude. And that's worth our students seeing. Because a lot of them, and we as adults too, we get caught up in the rat race really, really easy. And for them, they are just striving with everything within them to accomplish stuff. And it's usually to get to the next thing so they can get to the next thing. They want to get into a good college so they can get a good job, and then they can have all this stuff, right? And there's nothing wrong with going to a good college and having a good job and having all this stuff. But if that's the only goal, they're going to find that's really futile and so unsatisfying. And so this is a helpful book for them to see that there was a dude and he had everything and he was miserable. And so we need to learn from that. That middle section from chapter 3, holy cow, is that some real talk. And I use that phrase because that's the way that students would describe it. They ask questions straight out of the scriptures that teenagers ask themselves every day. Atheists asks of believers all the time. What's the point of life? Animals die, humans die. Who cares? It even asked the question, hey, why does God allow all this evil stuff to happen? And it even acknowledges that there are evil people in the world, people that are supposed to be good or not good, whether it's in church or not in church. What's up with that? Solomon was asking those questions too. And what they need to know is the Bible not only acknowledges the evil full of world, but it gives us the answer to why those things happen. And ultimately, it's just this. God is gracious. God is a judge. He's the perfect judge, and he will absolutely judge someday. But we need to praise God for the fact that he's patient with us and so gracious with us. Because if he were to judge us every time we did something evil, and that's what sin is. It's evil. It's not mess-ups. It's evil. If he were to judge sin automatically every time and carry out the penalty, none of us would be here. And so we can be grateful for the fact, even in our frustration, that God doesn't immediately take people out when they screw up, because he doesn't take us out when we screw up either. That's something that's helped them reason through that. That's important for them to know. A couple more things. I think that chapter 12, verse 12 is every student's favorite verse in the Bible that they don't know exists. Read that verse, specifically the second half. You'll understand why I'm saying that. That'll be their favorite verse when you point that out to them. Last thing of this, man, the vanity of life makes heaven more appealing. They got to know that. We weren't made for this place. We get to enjoy this place, and God has given us a lot to enjoy. But I love the C.S. Lewis quote, and I'm going to botch it a little bit here, but you'll get the gist of it. You can look this up. But C.S. Lewis made the statement that if my heart longs for something that this world cannot meet, that means that I was made for another world. And that's ultimately the point. God gave us things to enjoy, but he did not give us things to satisfy ourselves, because he wants to be the one to satisfy us. And he wants us to ultimately find our satisfaction in him, so that we desire ultimately to spend eternity with him, not just be content with what we have down here. It's not a mean trick by God, because again, God is being so kind and gracious to give of himself. And that's an incredible thing. God is everything but selfish, which is amazing. So relish in that this week, rejoice in that this week, and then explode just generously with those truths all over our kids this weekend. Guys, I love you all. See you soon. Bye.